What's up, Dr. Dan? So right now Jake and I are going to give you an update on our app. So to walk through, these are some of the tasks that we have worked on. So recently I have worked on the weather, or like the home screen, getting the weather and the user's location and like reverse geocoding their latitude and longitude to get their specific like address and city and state. And then I've also worked on the inner slide up panel, which is, so here's the slide up panel. So I'll talk about that one really quick. And this is pulling data from the database. So when you add a trip, it's calling that in and making a new widget. And it's also getting the trips from the collection trips. So basically when the user creates a new trip, it's going to create a collection right here. And within this collection, there are documents, and each document has the specific trip information. And then for the inner slide up panel, if you click right here, this is what it looks like. This was fairly difficult in order to get this to work. So I'll show some code related to that. So one thing that I had to do was create this class item that has whether or not it's selected and its preference. And then I created this widget called the preference container. For some reason, when I would try and create it like in its own widget class or widget file, it would act weird, so I ended up making it in here. And then this pref container is basically each one of these. And then coming up here, we have the right here. So we're using a grid view builder, and this grid view builder. And right here you can see we're using a grid view builder, and we set the scroll physics to none because we don't want the user to be able to scroll in here. We set the item count to 1. This was where I had a little bit of trouble because a lot of things that I looked up, it said to have 4 as the item count, and then this would cause all sorts of problems. So then I figured out to change the item count to 1 and then change this main axis extent to 100 because without this it was giving an error down here. So now that is setting the height of this grid view builder to that specific height. And then we have an item builder, which is then I utilized a wrap, and this wrap is doing the spacing between each element. And then for the children, I do for every element in the list of models, I create a preference container, and this list of models is a list up here with just hard set values. And initially the state is always false for is selected, and then when the user selects a right here on tap, it sets the item is selected to not item is selected, and then when you select them, it changes the color. And so now let's say we want to go to Temecula. And then we want to stop every 13 miles. Another thing that we did right here was when the user, the keyboard is for only numbers for our miles thing, just something small, not super important. And then you can choose these 3 preferences, click add stop, takes a second, sends the information to the database. This should drop down, so that's a little weird that that didn't. Let's retry that. So let's add another trip. If we come right here and we do, let's do Idaho. Stop every 40 miles, go to restaurants, fast food, and gas stations. So when you click add, it sends the item to the database right here. So now we can see where's Idaho. Right here. And then it's sending the data with the destination lat, the destination long, our current location lat, our current location long, the current date, and the average distance for each stop, and then the list of preferences. And then say we want to enter into a trip. This is on this trip info screen. This is showing the start location, which is the Cupertino, because that's where iOS headquarters or Apple headquarters is, and then the end location, which is Temecula. Then we have our trip stats. These 2 fields we're still waiting on. Jake is working on getting that data. Then it shows the date of when this trip was made, You can click start trip. Right now that's not doing anything. I just have it printing start. But when you click this button, it will navigate you to your native mapping tool and then do your trip for you. And then say you want to delete this trip, you can click this trash can right here. Deletes it from this list and also deletes it from the database. And overall, let's see, is there anything that I'm missing? Some big code features that we have for this time was the panels and a lot of the different information. And on the home screen, we are using the weather package, the geocoding package, and the location package. And the location package we are using in order to get the user's location. The weather we are using to then get the weather at that specific location. As you can see right here, the latitude and longitude of the user. And then we have this function right here called fetch, which is sending getting the user's information, or like getting, yeah. So it's getting their user ID and their username to then display it right here. And that is pretty much it. We also used a future builder. So this future builder calls fetch in order to get that information. And then for the weather, we use a future builder right here, and it calls the test weather connection in order to get that specific location. And then we have another feature builder for location. And yeah, overall, I think that's like the main code features. When you click this is just some fairly simple information. Another cool thing that I think actually on this inner open panel for the on press function that we had so what we're doing is when you select one of these, we're adding it to the preferences because we have a list of preferences, and then we are pushing the data. So right here we get the user's information. We check that the form is valid, so we have a validator that these two fields must have information, and then we utilize the until package in order to format our date with year, month, day, and then we get the destination latitude, longitude by reverse geocoding it from, say, this location to then latitude and longitude. And then we are trying this await instance. So basically this is what is sending the data to that specific collection under the user. So we go to the user's collection and then that document for the specific user. Then we go to collection trips. Then we add a list called trips with all of this information. And then we clear the destination, we clear the average distance, and then we unselect all of these items, which was a little difficult, but we were able to figure out. And then we close the widget panel. And overall, that was a lot of the code that we wrote for this trip, or for this app so far, for this update. And then now going forward, we want to have this screen finished up with the specific stops, and then have a screen, have it to where the user can click start trip and it takes them out to their thing. And then down here, maybe add something. But yep, now I'll let Jake talk about what he's been working on.
Sorry to take away from Dylan's presentation. We couldn't quite meet up at the right time this time, so he's probably going to splice these together. I wanted to go over kind of what I've been doing this week. I was sick for the majority of this last week, but I still tried to get some stuff done as best I could. While this is loading, I'm going to quickly talk about kind of the process that I went through with the APIs, since I was more in charge of the back end this time around. Because we realized that this routing issue we were having is going to be a big deal. I've been doing a lot of research, for a lot of hours, on just trying to get this stupid routes API to work right. Right now, I'm at a point where I'm pretty much using Python, and I'll go over the code in a little bit to work with this kind of body here. And I'll step through my code for that in a minute. And it has a lot of fields, and it doesn't seem like a big call, but then you realize, like a waypoint object, you have to go one step deeper and then one step deeper, and then it's just like not the greatest user experience, because to get a waypoint, I need a location. To get a location, I need a lat long, and then a lat long, you get these like super massive nested JSON objects. That said, the goal of this is to extract a polyline, which I've done some research into. If I go down here, this polyline encoding, the polyline is what I'm going to hopefully be able to decode and then trace to plant those points on to find those areas. So I can quickly, now this is deployed, I can go ahead and show you really fast what the call looks like right now on the inside. So right now we are accepting all of these parameters. Me and Dylan met and we talked, and these are the ones that we're going to be using here. So you've got like destination current date, destination lat, destination long, etc. That all gets passed into this backend here. This is a cloud function, so this has taken a little bit of time to learn. And then we're using the requests Python package, which I had to, this took again some time to figure out. They have to add a requirements.txt file to put in any Python like pip packages. So we're using the pip package for requests here. And then I believe this is the URL to use. And then inside here, this is what's taking me a long time, is you're getting the URL that is supplied here, and then you're passing in this massive JSON object with all the parameters. I'm briefly going to just go through all of what all of these are doing right now. So we've got the origin. This is the origin location. And we're describing the location as a lat long, and we're giving it a latitude and longitude. Same with this next guy, destination. It's a location with a latitude and longitude, and that's that. And then down here, we've got the travel mode. This is an enum, so it is set to drive. We have routing preference, which is traffic unaware. If you have traffic aware, it'll try to pick the route that is the most time saving. We're not doing that because it's going to mess with how the app actually picks the locations that you're going to visit. It's going to say the polyline quality. I want this as high quality because I need to be able to trace the line efficiently. I might mess with this if the request takes too long. I can definitely go back and undo this and make this a lower quality polyline. And then the compute alternate route, obviously we don't really care. And then this is language that we're using and the units of measurement that it's going to return. I might need to play around with this and make it metric eventually. And then if we don't get the right keys, it does just return and say, hey, you didn't give the right keys to the backend API. This is still a work in progress. It's not entirely working yet, but I did want to give you an update on just kind of what I've done for this past week. A lot of it has just been some like DevOps stuff, like setting all this stuff up on the backend has taken some time to make sure that it all works, adding the API keys, getting all that stuff set up for the backend, because we hadn't actually touched the backend until this sprint in quotes, this progress update. So that kind of wraps this area up. I am going to be working on this throughout the rest of the night. Again, I just want to give this to Dylan right now. So the progress that has been made by the time you watch this is definitely not equivalent to what was done now at this current point. So hopefully I'll finish that up in the next few hours, but I did want to just let you know of where I'm at. And then Dylan will obviously show you more of the front end features and things that he's been working on with the application over the past few days. So thank you, Dr. Dan. Look forward to finishing this up and presenting it on Thursday.